15. B, Human Resource Employee Resignations for school year 2014-15. C, Assistant Principal for Memorial High School. D, School Improvement Facilitator for James Nicky Rowe High School. E, Pending and/or potential litigation. F, Possible real estate acquisition. And now at 5:05 p.m., the board is now in closed session. It's now 6 p.m. and we will reconvene in open session. We'd like to welcome our audience members in the meeting room today, as well as those watching over their computers or mobile devices. For invocation, Trustee Vela will lead us into invocation.
Good afternoon, all. You'll bow your heads in prayer. Dear God, we have come together in your name to work for the good of our schools. Stay with us, your invisible presence, and pour your Spirit upon us. Make us use your gifts in a spirit of trust and guidance, and a spirit of prudence and understanding, so that the children of our district may experience an abundance of learning, compassion, and peace. Let harmony reign among us, and let us keep our eyes ever fixed on you. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And now, Trustee Saldivar will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join us in the State Pledge.
On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Now move to item number 6, recognitions and proclamations, which we have none. Item 7, board member and board committee and district reports. Item A, board meeting committee reports. For instructional services briefing, Trustee Ali Saida, the chair.
Yes, Trustee Esparza and I met with Assistant Superintendent Rachel Acarte, and we discussed the items that are on the agenda, and I'll elaborate more when we get into the actual agenda items.
Thank you. Item 2, business operations briefing, Trustee Saldivar.
Thank you, Madam President. Mrs. DeShays and I met Ms. Ali Seda as part of the committee last Thursday. We discussed several items on the agenda that will be presented, and we will discuss that and be able to participate and share with you some of those findings at that time. Thank you for, Madam President. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Trustee Saldivar. And our district operations briefing, Vice President Trustee Vela.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last Thursday, we met with Dr. Barrera and Kevin. We went over the projects that were ongoing. We visited the marquees. We visited, I got a report on the completion of the locker rooms at both Memorial High School and at McAllen High School. And he brought us up to date on all projects, both pending and about to be started. We went over a report on some paving issues that have been resolved. The report on all construction was good, and he also gave us a report on the roofs that we're getting ready to start using the hail damage monies that we recoup from the insurance company. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Vela. And now we'll move to item B, district reports. Report regarding college and career night. Ms. Alcaute?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Mrs. Alicera.
Good evening.
Oh,
President de la Garza, Dr. Boyce, and board members. I'm so busy trying to get my two
No worries,
accomplices here
no
with
worries.
me. I lost track of it. Tonight we bring a report regarding our college and career night, which will be taking effect on Monday, September the 15th, which is next week.
Excuse me, Ms. Alcante, the microphone, if you could.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you.
A little bit slow this evening. I apologize. And I'm trying to
Excuse the interruption.
make come up, but I'm not able to do that for some reason. I have a PowerPoint to share with you. There we go. Okay, let me start again. We're very excited about our College and Career Night, which will be taking place on Monday, September the 15th, and it will be at the McAllen Convention Center. And I've asked Mrs. McGlendon, who is our coordinator for guidance and counseling, and Mrs. Lily Sandoval Silva, who is our director for career and technology education. As you recall, we have had our College and Career Night for several years, but a couple of years ago, we brought in and added to it a career night in which we highlighted the different programs that we have under career and technology education, because we truly want our students to have that choice of a career, be it through the career technology programs or any of the other choices that we offer them through our instructional services. So I've asked the two ladies to join me. We had a very successful year last year. This year, I believe that we have added more to the program. We have sent out messages to parents. One of the ways that I know we always try to find is which is the best way to reach as many parents, but we're inviting all our high school students, 9th through 12th, to join us on this evening. I know that many parents think, well, it's my senior that has to be deciding, where they're going. But in reality, we have to start this conversation very early on. We're moving with activities down to the elementary level. But in particular, this is more of importance to our high school students as they select how they move forward. We will be starting at 5:30. We have a 3-hour gap for our students and our parents to be able to interact with college and university representatives, as well as teachers from our career technology education program and members of our community who come in and help us as we try to get the message across to our students about the importance of being in the right programs and choosing their courses well as they go through high school. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. McClendon to talk to you about the different work that we're doing with the different colleges and universities.
Good evening, Board President, Mrs. De La Garza Lopez, Dr. Ponce, board members. It's such a pleasure to be with you this evening and let you know about our College and Career Night that's going to be September the 15th, as Mrs. Arcati said. These are a listing of a few of the universities that are going to be there that evening. We're so pleased to have Princeton University, of course, our local universities. I'm not going to read all of that to you, but a very good listing of colleges, universities. We have some different business persons and community agencies that also give scholarships to students that'll be there that evening. So we have a wealth of information that we hope that parents and students take advantage of. Our students are going to the gotocollegefairs.com at the high schools. This is a way that they can pre-register for the college fair. We've done this for 3 years. 3 years ago, we were one of the pilot districts that piloted this, and so we're hoping that we continue to have more students that register this way and more universities that bring scanners with them that are able to scan the students' registration. Counselors and teachers are working with all of our students at this time, and the students register their name, their information, and that way when they're standing in line in front of the colleges, they don't have to sign something. They can just have their iPad, their iPhone, or a piece of paper scan. Some universities are still scanning papers, but we're pleased that we have this type of registration for our students. If you go to the next slide, please, Mrs. Arcati. They can go online, as I said, to the Go to College fairs, and then the universities and colleges are able to capture that data from the students. And I believe that we have a lot more students that attend based on doing this registration within the school day because they get excited about it and they know that they're going to be talking to someone there. I've added a few pictures of universities that attended last year to give you just a general idea. We know the UT Pan American there is now going to be UT RGV, but there certainly will be there in full force. In addition to meeting with college representatives, our parents are going to have the opportunity to attend parent presentations that evening. We have 12 parent presentations planned. They start at 6 o'clock, and end at 8:30. And we definitely welcome parents to come and join us in English and Spanish. Our presentations will be paying for college scholarships, financial aid, and also presentations on college enrollment, the application and registration process. And we have college representatives that help us with those presentations, as well as a local scholarship group, VAMOS, that will help us in doing some of those presentations. So we're planning a wonderful evening. Hope you all will join us, as well as the community that is listening to this. Mrs. Sandoval Silva now will tell you about the career fair.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Board President, Dr. Ponce, board members. Again, just like Ms. McClendon mentioned, we thank you for the opportunity of us having the time to give you information of College and Career Night. First of all, I want to go ahead and bring your attention to our slide. We have our Career Connection booklet, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with this, and this gives us information about all of our career technical education programs. We also have our CT logo that was designed by one of our former CT students, and we make it now our CT logo. And to the left, we have our McAllen ISD CT program goals, which are aligned to our state and federal guidelines. And I want to bring your attention to the first one, because this is why we're doing College and Career Night. One of it is to collaborate with an advisory industry council that provides continuous support to our technical education program. And it can be in the form of fairs, which is what we're going to have this next Monday, field trips, classroom presentations, internships, or I already said that one, but job shadowing opportunities, ongoing communication with industry and CTE educators to ensure we are preparing students with sustainable workforce skills that are current and viable to today's industries, recommendation on course content, as well as recommendations on the equipment, software, licenses, and certifications that we're utilizing in our classroom to prepare our students for 21st century targeted occupations. And as was mentioned by Ms. McClendon, we're really excited about the design that we're using for this, for our new College and Career Night. We are going to be bringing to you the College Career Night in a form that will really make the endorsement be more meaningful to our students. I don't know if you're familiar with the endorsements, but I want to bring to mind the three that align with career technical education, which are public services, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which most of us know as STEM, business and industry. These are the three that are aligned to CTE. However, we're also going to have information about multidisciplinary and arts and humanities. We will also have presentations on an ongoing basis during the College Career Night on the CT program and how it aligns to the new graduation requirements. These are some pictures from last year's College Career Night. As you see to the left, we have one of our representatives that our students are able to do job shadowing for our pharmacy class in. Then on the left, or to the right, I'm sorry, we have our CT teachers that will also be there. And then we have our CTSO students, which will be there guiding our participants in the form of taking them to the different areas, or if they need a little bit of help, they're going to be guiding them. And the students will be working in shifts so that they will also have the opportunity to be participants in the event. The next. Here are additional slides, and this is our agriculture, science, and architecture construction program. In McAllen ISD, we're able to afford our students with the opportunity of being enrolled in different areas, in 15 different career clusters, of which there are 16. And we also have 23 programs of studies that align to the 15 career clusters. Now, one of the things that we're also doing in order for it to be more meaningful to students, we're gonna give them an activity that they will be using in order for them to be able to guide themselves and ask meaningful questions, perhaps questions such as salary, what kind of salary do the different occupations make, what kind of educational preparation they need, where do these, for instance, where would these areas be afforded opportunities? Because some of the jobs perhaps are not popular here in the valley, but might be very popular elsewhere. So some of these questions are important that students are aware of. Then the last slide, this is one of our other programs of study which features our law public safety career cluster as well as our auto technology and collision program. And this has become a pretty popular area as well, our culinary program, as well as our engineering and manufacturing, which falls under trades and industry. And again, we're hoping to see you there. You're all invited, and again, thank you for your support.
We do hope to be able to encourage as many parents to come, in particular this year with our incoming freshmen and our current sophomores, which are the students who are going to be probably having the best opportunity for completing their endorsements. When the endorsements were rolled out with the House Bill 5, it was for the current freshmen, but it also allows for other students who are already in high school to be able to also complete an endorsement. And as Mrs. Sandoval Silva mentioned, when we look at our 5 endorsement areas, part of the grouping that we'll be doing on the center of the arena is going to be to cluster the classes and the industry organizations that are with us by endorsement, so that students will be able to see the relationship between what does it mean to be in a multidisciplinary endorsement or a humanities endorsement. Those are the other 2 that are outside of the CTE STEM. But to be able to see, okay, what does this mean? You know, I know it's humanities, but what does multidisciplinary mean? So we'll have representatives from the different programs to answer questions along with our counselors, to be able to talk to our parents about what it means if their child signed up for an endorsement. I know one of the questions that keeps coming up this year has been, well, I signed up for one endorsement. Does that mean that I have to keep that endorsement for the remainder of my high school years? And the answer is no. They are able to come back and change that endorsement with parent consent. The state has asked us to at least give them till the end of their sophomore year to make that decision, but it may be that a child at the end of their freshman year, as they learn more, realize, you know, I definitely want to make that change. And that's a conversation that would be had with our counselors, especially in the spring as we move forward to next year. So there's a lot of information for parents, whatever grade level it is, from 9 through 12. As I said, along with all our universities, we're setting it up, like as I said, a slightly little bit different. But the idea is to make sure that we have as many resources available for our parents. So we invite everyone. It starts at 5:30 and it goes through 8:30.
Thank you, Ms. Arcaute, Ms. McLennan, and Ms. Sandoval Silva for your presentation. Any questions or comments? Oh, Trustee DeShazo?
Ms. Arcaute, I looked at the information here, and then you put it up on the board. You only had on the slide, you listed 7 universities, but are there more than that?
Yes, ma'am. We
Okay.
just put as many logos as we could because
you listed them, and I noticed that you put the University of Texas at the bottom. At Austin. You put A&M right above it.
Actually,
that's
I
okay.
think I was very careful that I put them side by side. I put them side by side.
Okay. See at the bottom, see at the very bottom? But that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that there's more than that, right?
Oh, you mean on the listing?
Yes,
No,
on the
no,
list.
on the logo.
I thought that they were in alphabetical order, but then I realized they weren't, so, okay.
No. We were trying to get it, there are, actually, we have a total of
By football
85
rankings.
different tables set up for colleges and universities, a total of 85.
Oh,
Some
okay.
of them are still responding to us.
Great.
So we hope to be able to have every table filled. I know at times, last-minute delays by planes or other, some university reps are not able to get here, but we do have enough for 85 to be set up.
Wow, that's great. And aside from Lee's Pharmacy that was on the picture, how many community businesses do you have? Are there a lot more than that one pharmacy?
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned, I forgot to
some
mention
people.
that. There's 45 business representatives that have signed up, and there's about 40 CT teachers that will be there. Thank you.
Okay, and my last question, I noticed that the budgetary considerations, it totaled up to almost $2,100 or $21,000. Where does most of that money go to? I mean, where do we spend the
A good
majority?
portion is going to be for the rental of the convention center. The colleges and universities do not charge us anything. What we do in return is, most of these representatives have been presenting at high schools during the day.
Mhm.
We have been fortunate to be able to get an evening event. And we went after that because we want the parents to be a part of it. So in return of that, they finish with the other high schools at about 4 o'clock, and they rush to us, and we'd give them a quick meal before they were ready to start at 5:30. But a big piece of that is the rental and the meals, because everything has to be purchased within.
And is that amount pretty consistent for the last, as long as you've done? I mean, does it go up a lot after 1 year?
Actually, this year, we're going up a little, only because we decided to bring in the endorsements, and we wanted to bring attention to the endorsements within the instructional piece. So the banners that you see here are things that we are having printed
Okay.
to be able to hang from the ceilings. We're trying to strategize to where they are directly over that grouping of classes and business industry, so that the student can see the connection between arts and humanities, and right below that, the classes that go around that. That was part of our increase. The rest, like I said, it's the meals, the rental of the property.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Trustee Saldivar?
Thank you, Madam President. Great presentation. Really look forward to this event. Under House Bill 5, the idea was in 8th grade that the students begin to meet with their parents in the school district and begin to have an understanding and kind of formulate an idea of which endorsement or career path they're looking at. How are we communicating to those parents and those students in the 8th grade to be able to come to this event?
Well, we had a lot of discussion with that. One of the things that we wanted to do was to have the 8th graders begin learning about endorsements. But in discussing it, we came to the decision that we needed to give parents and students a little bit more information prior to bringing them in and be able to see the connection. So we decided that what we're going to do in addition to this college and career fair is do a separate, similar to this, when I have all the classes and the representatives there, but do it solely for 8th grade parents, to be able to hold sessions for parents to understand it before they go out and start talking to the classes and the industry people, for them to understand. It'll be part of our series of college readiness activities for the incoming 8th grader, because typically we begin the conversation with them in November, about thinking about what they're going to do for the following year. So we decided we're going to chunk it into smaller pieces, and sometime in November be able to bring them in, and it'll be solely for 8th grade students.
And to, as far as this event for those that are in high school then, how are we communicating that to the parents and students?
We're
so
sending
that
it
they can
different
attend?
ways. What we found was that when we try to use, we use the typical zip slip connection, student connections, etc. But we send a reminder. We do one announcement, but then we also have been sending, in the last couple of years, we've seen a bigger increase, a little postcard that reflects this postcard itself, and it's just a reminder, because we remind them the week before, and then this week they'll receive this, and they'll remind them again, okay, this is coming up. Especially because right now, in this last 2 weeks, and even this 3rd week, we have been having curriculum nights for parents at the elementary and middle school. High school is doing open house or meet the teacher this week. So the parents have been very busy every week. There's been activities for them to do. And we just kind of find another way to remind them that this is coming up next week. So we chose to also send a postcard, which you see here on the screen.
Now, have you had some parents that for whatever reason have not chosen to participate at the 8th grade level? And if so, how are you able to comply with House Bill 5 with those families that have not chosen to
We
get together
have,
with the district?
Part of the task that was at the middle school was making sure that they had reached out to every parent because we needed to have an endorsement. And I don't know if Mrs. McClendon wants to talk to that, but that was one of the tasks that both the 8th grade counselor had to follow up with, and then, of course, the incoming freshman counselor had to follow up to make sure we had one on file.
I know the 8th grade counselor met with all the students and, sent out reminders, called parents, asked parents to come in. We did it various ways at different middle schools with some good luck at some of the campuses. For whatever reason, maybe our nights that we planned or after school or during the day did not work as well at other places. And then we followed back up at the beginning of this year as students were coming in to pick up their schedule, things like that. And so, we're continuing to reach out to some of the parents that still have not responded. But we've been able to, reach a good majority of them.
Is there any plan under consideration and currently by the administration as to how they're going to address those families that for whatever reason haven't reached out, like site visits or Skyping with those families since they have iPads?
And those are excellent ideas, and so we will continue to do our very best to reach out to those families. And we want them to be part of it. We need their input. We want them to understand how important this is. It was an important choice that their son or daughter chose, and we want them to be part of that. So we'll continue to keep an update on how we're doing with that.
And a final question. At the high school level with counseling and the fact that each child needs to make a decision and have an interaction with their parent and the counselor to determine what endorsement, how much time are they required, and do we have the staff necessary to be able to do that? Where they have that one-on-one with that counselor with the time necessary to make the sound decision.
Right, and those were the activities that took place last spring as we were going through the enrollment process and the selection of courses. That was one of the activities. But we always, for some reason or other, we will have a student that never completes that. So during the registration process, if we did not have a schedule for the student, then that was also one of the pieces that we were looking at completing. So we've added more in, let's say, from July on, but I have not determined that we have one in file for every single child. And so that's something, a process that we have to continue, especially as we move into our third week of school. Progress reports, of course, come out at the end of the third week, beginning of the fourth, and that'll be another way to remind the parents that we still need to come in. I know that campuses had different activities where they asked the parent just to come in specifically to speak to that in the evenings. And it was, as quick as I've already made up mine, I just hadn't signed it for you, but we did make ourselves available, or the campuses did, in the evenings, especially for the parent who works who couldn't come in to get a signature. But that is something that we have to continue monitoring.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza?
Good evening. I think this is great, and having a senior this year, we'll be there on Monday. How many participants did we have last year? Do you have any idea?
Parents and students, we had 1,700 that attended, more approximately. I think it was 1,731. I don't know if any of you were able to attend last year. We had horrible weather that evening. A huge rainstorm blew in about 6 o'clock. I mean, with blowing rain that we generally don't have in McAllen, but in spite of that, I thought we had a very good attendance. We were down probably about 500 from the year before, where we didn't have that type of weather, but overall, we felt still pleased with that. With our parent presentations, we had about approximately 120 parents that attended our, we had 8 presentations last year. We're increasing to 12 presentations this year. and we were only down by 2 parents in the parent presentations, again, in spite of the weather. So, you know, we always want more parents and students to be there, but I thought that we still did well. And of course, we're hoping for a really good turnout this year. Like I said, we've been advertising, counselors, CTE staff have been introducing it to students and teachers, so hopefully that attendance is good. And we need rain, but not blowing rain that evening.
I'm sorry, in regards to, like, when we had the back-to-school event, beginning of the school year, I know we spoke about this, you know, the parents were required to come with their child. In this case, they're not. The high school students can come by themselves.
They can come on their own.
Yeah.
They can come on their own. We do encourage the parent, because there's times that, you know, conversation will come up when they're speaking with the college reps that the parent needs to hear. But yes, the student can definitely come on their own, but we do encourage the parents to come in. One of the things that we've done, and we're more specifically this year, we're also tasking our freshmen and sophomore students coming in with an activity that's going to be tied back to one of their classes. The freshman level, it will be with their transitions class, and at the sophomore level, it will be with our what we call our PIT class, which is Principles of Technology. That's really forcing the child to have conversation with someone and not just come to the college and career and promenade around, and, you know, they'll say we were there but really didn't learn anything. Especially for the freshman and sophomore. One of the goals is to have them engage in conversation about what is in front of them, you know, be it the college rep or the career technology individuals. Juniors and seniors by this time should have a good idea of where they want to go, and so those will primarily go straight to the college and universities. We've told them in the past that they should at least have 5 that they want to look at closely, to make sure they always have a backup in case they were not able to get into one university or the other.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustee. Any further questions? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Now move on to item 7B2, report regarding Student Success Initiative and Accelerated Instruction.
Yes, ma'am. This report is a new one for us, although I am very happy to say that we've always done this type of an evaluation for our programs. Under House Bill 5, the legislature added under Texas Education Code 28.0217, requiring that districts do an evaluation or perform an evaluation on their summer accelerated programs. Because we use special revenues for these programs, we have always done an evaluation. The only thing different for us is that we're reporting it public to you. What I've done here is looked at data with staff, and we offered for the end of course exam, which covers Algebra 1, Biology, English 2, and Social Studies. We offered students the opportunity to come in for accelerated instruction. In other words, let's prepare you better for your second attempt at taking this end-of-course exam, or it could have been their third, because the summer administration is open to any child who has failed one or more of the tests. Our students begin taking their end-of-course exams at the freshman level. Our last graduating class that finished in May of 2014 was the last class to graduate with the tax as part of their graduation requirements. Now, if I do have a student who is returning to us, possibly as a fifth-year student, they came in under the tax testing, so they will graduate and sunset through that program. But our students that are currently high school seniors are graduating under the new requirements through end of course. A lot has changed since the House Bill 5 brought in the requirements of end of course testing. If you recall, back when we first started with looking at the end of course, the legislature at that time was requiring that the child's course grade, along with the end of course exam, be a part of their final grade, and it was tied together. They could pass one and not pass the other, etc. Very happy to later find out that the legislature decided to do away with that component, and it came up strictly to they pass it or they don't pass it. So our students will take the courses that also have end-of-course exams. We have 3 that are administered at the freshman level, and that is your algebra, your English 1, and your biology. If a student doesn't pass it at their freshman level, they have another opportunity, their sophomore, junior, and then even their senior year level. The end of course is administered 3 times a year. For the first-time student, they take it in the spring of their freshman year. If they do not pass it there, they have an opportunity to retest in the summer in July. If they do not pass it there, they have another opportunity for a retest in October. So the test is administered 3 times a year, and at any one time, the student can always retest, and we require all our students to retest if they have not passed it. When I look at the overall number of students that participated this summer, and by that I mean we invited all our students to come in, and from that number, we had 490 that showed up for 1, 2 days. Some stayed with us the whole 3.5 weeks. Some stayed with us for a week. Sometimes it was an issue with, the family planning for summer, etc. But we opened the opportunity for all students. What I'm bringing you today is a summary, and what we've done is a comparison of last year's summer administration for the end of course compared to this year's. Since this is the first year that we're actually looking at the evaluation by comparison. As I said, we've always looked at how many students we've tested. We've looked at how many students actually showed up. The student was encouraged to come, and we made a lot of parent phone calls to make sure that their child was with us. For one reason or the other, they did not all show up. However, if a student did show up the day of the test, they were allowed to take the test. The summer was not a prerequisite for them to take the test, although we encouraged it highly. So this chart gives you a comparison of last year's students who showed up for tests. On the left side with summer 2013, last year we had 487 tests that were administered during that summer administration. We had almost the same number this year at 484. But we did see an increase in the percent passing from last year to this year. Overall, we had an 11% growth between students passing all tests. Now, when we look at the individual number of students who actually took the test, that is more closer to the 350 range, because a student can take more than one test. They may have failed 1 out of the 4 or 2 out of the 4. So these are just a number of students who were tested overall. Here, for example, is just the algebra. Last year we had 112 students who were present when we administered the test. This year we had 131. We did see an increase in passing. We also look at the different demographics, how successful are our students. We were very happy to say that, we did have an increase in all these areas from the previous year in terms of percents passing. Here is the ELA. And also had, this one, was in the 200 mark. Last year we had 226 students, this one 265. But we did have an increase also in the percent passing. Here's the science test, which in this case is biology, and also an increase. You'll see a slight decrease in the male and in the lab. Our numbers were not as high there in terms of number of students showing up compared to last year. But it also means that we had less students who were under that particular breakdown for the ethnicity. And then we have social studies. Now, social studies is different because this was the first cohort that took social studies as part of their end of course exams. We did have, I believe, a total of 4 students who took it last year. And those would have been students who were accelerated. They took the test because they happened to be sitting in a junior level class. But this would be the first year that we actually have students who are testing. We did not have a large number show up for the social studies. But overall, as a district, at the end of May last year, we had 104 students who had not passed their social studies. So when I look at 22, we had about 20% of those show up to actually take the test. Overall, when I look at the numbers individually by content, we had approximately, between English 1 and English 2, approximately 1,500 opportunities for tests in that area, tests that were not passed. But again, some students show up, some don't. Happy to see that we did have an increase in the percent passing, but we were not successful in getting all our students in for the testing. We, of course, will try again in October. In October, we do have our students captive because they are in class. So we know that we will have every single one report to testing. During the summer, it's really at the discretion of the parent and the child, as much as we try to bring them in. And then again, the next opportunity after October will be in the spring. Even though our incoming freshmen will be testing for the first time, any child who did not pass it this summer is given the opportunity to retest, and then once again in July. So by the time they reach their senior level, the students do have an opportunity to be able to pass it multiple times for it to be administered. And of course, our goal is to continue increasing it.
Thank you, Ms. Alcalde. Question? Trustee
Yes,
DeShazo?
yes, ma'am, thank you. Ms. Alcalde, you know, you put on there were a total of 490 high school students, and then I think I heard you say 484 took the test. Is that correct?
Yes.
And these kids, these students are, I heard you say earlier, identified as the ones that didn't pass the end of course, and you call and ask them to come and encourage them to come, but they don't have to come. They can just come take the test if they want.
They can. We have very few, I'll be honest, we have very few that actually just walk up. The majority are that we're able to keep there are the ones who continue coming with us on a regular basis during the summer. But yes, nothing prohibits a child from just showing up that day and saying,
I
I'm
wanna
here,
take
I
the
want to
test.
take the test.
And let me see if I've got this straight. If you're taking English 2 and you didn't pass that end of course, you could be a senior and come back and take that test?
Yes.
And the opportunities are over when they are seniors, or can they come after they graduate? I mean,
Even after they graduate, we do have students that return. We call those students, the state looks at them as out-of-school students. They may have completed all their course requirements for graduation in terms of their credits, but are still lacking a test. They can still continue to show up to our doors, and we will continue affording them the opportunity to test at any of the 3 times during the year.
and who teaches these courses in the summer? Are they teachers of English teachers, science,
Yes.
biology teachers?
Yes. This year, every year we do data analysis. By we, I mean my coordinators in the different disciplines do a data analysis to see where, the group of students who did not do well on these tests, who have not passed the test, what are the areas that we really need to concentrate on. When we do our selection for teachers for summer school, all our teachers are all highly qualified, but we do encourage those teachers who have had a lot of success with their students to join us in the summer and to help the students. They've been successful. One of their strategies may have worked better than for some students. So we have encouraged them to help us with the summer program. This year we did have a very good turnout. Very often, I'll be honest with you, we're struggling to find teachers in the summer. This year we were able to get enough teachers to be able to help us with all the students who showed up. They then, together with the coordinators, looked at the curriculum and then very strategically looked at what do we need to concentrate with this group of students in this class, because in a particular classroom some students may have been struggling with one type of concept that next door they were not. So that we were a little bit more strategic in saying, okay, let's make sure we address the specific needs of the students. For one, not waste their time on things that they already know, but primarily target those areas that they had weaknesses in.
And Ms. Alcalde, do you see a correlation in any of the subject areas with the number of students that come for this enrichment program? Are we seeing that more of them are failing English or math or biology? Do you see any kind of correlation that might lead us to point that at one particular school there's an area that is weak because a lot of these kids are coming from that high school for this particular subject area that didn't pass that?
This year, and I don't have the school breakdown in front of me, but this year our scores were pretty even across.
Okay.
The one area in English 1 and English 2 was the area that we had the most number of students not meeting standard.
Okay.
English 1 and English 2. Part of that can be attributed to the fact that if you recall 2 years ago, the language arts, or the English language arts, was tested as 2 separate tests. We had a reading and a writing test. The state moved away from that and combined the test into a 5-hour test. So while before it was not timed in reading and in writing, prior to 13-14 and 12-13, they combined it to one test. And having students do both the writing and all the reading, editing that they do, the state did give us a 5-hour time limit, so it was still timed, just an hour more than the other tests. So that, I believe, contributed to that piece, that students were really constrained to the amount of time. Because in the algebra, biology, and the U.S. history, we saw, the numbers like half of the other assessments in terms of passing. Language has been, one that our students have struggled with. And the changing of the test, not only did the state change the way it was being tested, but the way we had our students doing the writing. Before it was much of a narrative, it was expository. That has also changed. They are now asking for short answer questions, so the students have to really respond quickly and be able to come up with a scenario and be able to explain. So there's several things that contribute to that, but English language arts was by far the highest.
And you did say earlier that you saw an 11% growth in students passing.
Of the ones who attended and tested, compared to the prior year, there was an 11% growth in the number of students passing.
Well, that's good. Okay, thank you, Ms. Arcota. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza, please.
We discussed this during our ISS meetings, and just wanted to make a note that this accelerated instruction during the summer, it's available free to the students at no charge.
It is free to students at no charge or to the parents. That's part of what we offer on a regular basis. We offer similar during the school year, either on Saturdays, and in some cases we do have classes specifically set up for that. But all of this accelerated instruction and preparing is at no cost to the student or the parent.
Madam President,
Trustee Saldivar?
for clarification, those individuals that are up to the age of 26 that graduated under a certificate of completion, those individuals prior to this last year would still be under the task?
They would still be under the tax. Yes. And actually, there was talk about the state was going to sunset that part also.
Okay.
We do have kids that come back. Well, actually, they're not kids; they're adults by the time they're returning. 7, 8 years after they've completed their coursework, that continue to come back. The state has always, at one point, said that's it. If they want to graduate, they now have to graduate with the new requirement. So I do foresee that coming, that they will not be able to go back to the previous tests.
So at some point, once the state makes a decision, it could be that no matter what, once you graduate, you have to do STAR.
Right.
But at this time, it's still, for those that graduate prior to this year, there's still tasks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions from the board? Thank you. Then we'll now move on to item 7B3, report regarding taxes collected for July 2014. Ms. Lopez?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening.
The total collected in July was $402,353. Local maintenance collections was over $360,000. Debt service collections was over $41,000. The report from the Hidalgo County Tax Office is attached for the board's review. This is, of course, all of 2013 and prior years or delinquent tax collections that are being reported. The percent collected for 13-14 is at 5.35% as compared to the percent collected in 12-13 at 5.96%. Again, this report is for the month of July.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, Madam President. Looking at this report, the total amount of outstanding delinquent tax to the district is $11,708,073. Is that correct?
Actually, sir, the taxes outstanding is the 7,115,172.
$7,115,172.
Yes, sir.
And 8 cents.
Yes, sir.
And of that, it's 5.35% from that amount
That have been collected so far. Yes, sir.
compared to last time, which was, you mentioned, 5.96.
Yes, sir.
Thank
And
you.
actually, the original levy, we do subtract out the modifications to date, but it's not very material. It's just under that $12,000 figure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any further questions? Now move to item 8A, approval of human resource recommendations for school year 2014-15. Ms. Lopez?
Yes, ma'am. We had elementary, secondary, and some additional other professionals listed there for the board's review.
Thank you. This item is for,
Second?
I have a motion by trustee Aliseda and a second by trustee DeShazo. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Item passes 7-0. Item 8B, Human Resource Employee Resignations for School Year 2014-15 is for your information only. Item 8C, Approval of Assistant Principal from Memorial High School. Ms. Lopez?
Yes, ma'am. The recommendation is Melissa Garza.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Aliseda and a second by trustee Vella. Any questions or comments from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Item passes 6-1. Now move to item 8D, Approval of School Improvement Facilitator for James Nicky Rowe High School. Ms. Lopez?
Yes, ma'am. The recommendation is Marie C. Smith.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Vella and a second by trustee Aliseda. Any questions or comments from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Item passes 7-0. Item 8E, pending or potential litigation. Mr. Crane?
No report.
Thank you. And item 8F, possible real estate acquisition.
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. We'll now move to item 9, Instructional Services, District Operation, Business Operations Superintendent, and Board of Trustees briefing items. A, Instructional Service briefing items from Ms. Arcaute. Number 1, approval of campus performance objectives.
Yes, ma'am. This report and the following one are two reports that we bring to you on an annual basis as part of our requirement under the Education Code 11.253. Our campuses must set performance objectives for the following school year for their assessments. In our case, we have assessments and we add attendance and dropout and graduation rates depending on the different grade levels. The campuses we're working on the different objectives that will be brought back to you. This is a two-part presentation notifying the community that we are going to be bringing this to you on the 22nd. And you'll have it campus by campus. This is a report that we bring you where we break it down with all the different subpopulations. Even before the No Child Left Behind program came into place, this was the way we reported it to you as a board. And so when that law came into place, it was very easy for us to transition to it. But you will be receiving it prior to your board meeting so you can begin reviewing. This is where we also provide you with the executive summaries of their campus improvement plans.
Thank you, Ms. Arcaute. Any questions or comments from the board? Move to item 9A2, approval of 2014-15 district performance objectives.
The same is held for us as a district. This is under Education Point 11.252. We as a district do the same. We look at our overall scores from the scores ending in May of 2014, reflect back to the prior year, and then set the goals for the coming year. If you recall, with the NCLB, our requirements had been that by the year 14-15, every subgroup in every content area should be at 100%. In that process, if you recall, we as a state moved into the STAR testing, so our state asked the Department of Ed for a waiver in meeting this requirement since we had changed assessments. It was granted for last year. The state has asked for an extension into this year. The state has, at this point, not heard back to whether that would still be something we're going to be held to. If it is the case, the state will then give us the new percentages that we will be bringing to you as our goal. I don't know that we'll have an answer by the September 22nd. Last year, the state heard from the feds very late in the year whether they were going to allow us to have the waiver or not. So there was a lot of contingencies this year. We're hoping that the state met the requirements so that they would be able to honor the waiver.
Thank you, Ms. Arcaute. We'll now move to item 9.3, approval of request for maximum class size waiver applications for 2014-15.
Yes, ma'am. This application is to be submitted by October the 1st. As of this week, when I was posting this item, the application was still not online. I will have it for you by the September 22nd. We have been monitoring the attendance on a daily basis and on a regular basis. This past Friday, I forwarded to you what it looked like at the end of 2 weeks. The state requires that kinder through fourth be kept at a 22-to-1 ratio. If a district chooses to go beyond that, we must apply for the waiver. And I'm trying to, there it goes, no, not coming back up. There we go. This is membership as of this morning. And as I said, the state monitors kinder through fourth. They do not have any requirements on pre-K and fifth grade. We do monitor those grade levels, and we do look at trying to keep the numbers at a comfortable work for that setting. But here you'll see the total number of sections that are over by 1, in most cases, sometimes by 2, at the different campuses. So out of the 430 sections that we have in the district between kinder and fourth, that means 430 classrooms, we have 59 that are over by 1 or more students. And as I said, we receive the report on a regular basis and continue monitoring. We were having our campuses do most of their balancing by this past Friday. As students are coming in, they continue to try to balance their classes. And part of the application requires that we submit to the state a plan of how we're trying to minimize. Looking at this numbers compared to where we were last year, this is much less than we had last year. I believe last year by the time we submitted, we were in the 70s at one point, then in the 60s, high 60s, and right now we're 59, knowing that we are still balancing classes. In some cases, a campus may be closing one section of a grade level because the numbers are not there, and creating another section to try to balance them out. On the day of September 22nd, I will bring you the full application and the numbers that we will be submitting at that time to the state for our waiver.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Ms. DeShazo?
Yes, Ms. Arcaute, so when you say that you have this required to conduct an enrollment survey, you're the one that your office does that survey, is that correct? I mean, you monitor the numbers and...
It's a joint effort. Sonia Mata, with her staff, our data person, recoups all the data from our Skyward, which is when the teachers are taking attendance and do enrollment. This year, Socorro Espinosa, along with our two directors for human resources, John Cavazos and Aurora Zamora, will be also reviewing them. And I know that they have been working closely with principals in balancing by either moving a teacher from one section to another where the numbers did not make, and trying to balance them across.
But you did say that most of the 59 are over just by 1 or 2.
A good majority are over by 1 or by 2.
Okay.
We do have a couple of sections that are a little bit heavier in some of our campuses where there's only 2 sections because the enrollment is much lower. You will see it going a little bit higher, but the majority of them are within 1 or 2.
And how do we request a waiver like every year?
We have I believe in the last 4 years, and we did this looking closely, I'll be honest, when Dr. Ponce came on board, we were looking closely at, before the waiver, we used to bus our students. In other words, if a student showed up to Bonham Elementary, for example, and they happened to be student number 23, even though they lived in that community, we would bus them to the nearest elementary that had space. So we had students busing all over town. And one of the things that we looked at the time was that that child would leave their home through a bus, for example, at Bonham, be dropped off at Bonham, picked up by another bus to be taken possibly to Escandon. So the child was spending a lot of time on the bus. So we stopped that, and Prior to that, we were just trying to not have to have a waiver.
Correct.
But this is really the best thing for our kids.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President.
Trustee
Thank you.
Saldivar?
Commend the administration, put a lot of time and effort over the last 4 or 5 years. This has been an ongoing concern. Now, would it be fair to say that there is no class up at the middle school staffing model of 25 to 1 at the elementary campus? In other words, at the elementary campus, you're not above 25 students in a K through 4.
We do have a couple, as I said, they change every day. Friday, I was looking at them with Ms. Zamora and Ms. Espinosa, and we see them and they're at 22, 23. And then this morning I look and evidently 2 more kids showed up because now that particular class has 24. So these are numbers that continue moving up and down.
But I'm basing, Ms. Echo, excuse me, on that report, which is dated today's date.
Right,
That says
and this
today's
is only
date.
the elementary.
I understand,
Mhm.
exactly, which is all the waiver pertains to K through
Right.
4 at the elementary. And so I'm trying to gauge, you're mentioning 1 by most of the classes, and it's
Mhm.
admirable because we're down to 58, I can recall in the 70s, 80s,
Mhm.
and only 13% overall. So it's a lot of body of work, and we're going back to neighborhood schools. All that's great, and I support all that.
Mhm.
But you also mentioned there were some classes that were above that, and I'm trying to gauge how many of those are at the 25 plus, because that's a middle school staffing model of 25 to 1. Actually, 5th grade above through 8th grade,
Okay, I'm trying to bring up that sheet.
I
right in front of
see.
me.
as
Go
of
ahead.
right now, because that's based on this report, just to know
Yes.
right now. So when you come back in 2 weeks, I'll be able to better gauge the progress, if any, we're able to make, and understand we don't want to create a class for 1 or 2 students more, but again, to have a better understanding.
Ms. Lopez, go
As
ahead.
of today, or I think this report came in before lunch, for instance, at Sanchez in K, we have a section of 25 and we have one of 26. As far as I can tell, I don't see anyone else offhand. I see some 25s, but I don't see any other 26s, and I'm looking.
I didn't think I had seen that this morning, especially in the K through 4. Like I said, in the pre-K and
Now-
5th grade.
And actually, on that one, we do have some balancing left, because we've got the 25, 26, and 22. So we could give some relief to the 25 and 26 into the 22,
Mhm.
so.
So if it was possible, or once for our next final, because that's the document you're going to be submitting for the waiver, if we can have, in addition to this chart, which is great, but also to understand how many classes are at above the 1 or 2. I can, 1 or 2 here and there makes sense, but when we start getting above 25 at K through 4, I think that's where we get concerns. And then if the administration has any thoughts about if there's a way to alleviate that in any way, and it may not be, I think that would be a fair thing to see as well.
Yes, sir.
Because frankly, if it's only 3 in one class or 2 at Sanchez, as you're mentioning today, then obviously, do we have an assistant in there or an aide, things of that nature to help give support?
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Trustee Saldivar. Any further questions or comments? Okay, we'll then move on to item 9A4, approval of cooperative agreement between McAllen ISD and Region 1 Education Service Center for the Adult Education Program.
Yes, ma'am. We are excited about this program. We have many of our parents that are very much interested in continuing their education. If you recall, earlier this year in August, I brought to you the report regarding the community engagement, and a part of our success there was having parents that were involved in our welding program through our evening center program. Region 1 and McAllen ISD have had different arrangements and agreements in previous years in helping our parents fulfill some of their education goals. And last year we worked very closely with Region 1. Region 1 was set up somewhere near the vicinity of McCall and Trenton, offering GED and ESL classes to our community. And they were looking at moving a little bit closer into the immediate center of our community. This year, we are going to be able to partner with them and offer this program during our evening center at McAllen High School. We have found that that's a really good centrally located building that our parents are going to be able to come to. One of our benefits for us is that as the parents come in, we encourage that they bring their children with them, and we offer students homework help, tutoring, etc. So while the parent is learning, so is the child, and it becomes a family affair for them coming together. So we started advertising. We've had a very good response already. The registration will be taking place the last week of September. But I know that this is one that in the past has always had a waiting list, so I anticipate that we will have that also this year. This is of no cost to us. Region 1 is providing the staff and all the materials. We are providing the classrooms within McAllen High School.
Thank you, Ms. Aracate. Trustee DeShazo?
Ms. Arcaute, you said that you have advertisement, because I noticed where it says that they have to, the MISD recruitment of students. So how is this done? Is it done through the parental involvement program? Is that how?
Through the parental involvement, word gets out very quickly when they realize, when community members that want to have this access heard that we were going to be involved. Our parental involvement offices and federal programs has been inundated with phone calls about when do I start, when can I register.
And is there a limit as to how many we can take?
Unfortunately, there is. Region 1 has always capped it. So it's not always a matter of that we don't have enough classrooms. It's just how
Correct.
much staff that they're able to afford to the evening program.
And I noticed it says the program will commence in September, but do you have a specific date? Have they set a date?
We are targeting that we would be doing the registration the last week of September 22nd, which is the day I bring it to you. The following day is when we would start our program on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But by word of mouth and by phone calls, we already have a running list of the individuals that are saying they're ready to come.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? I know you said there'll be advertisements, but hopefully there will be some kind of social media push for those in that generation that would most likely benefit from this. So that should really
Yes,
help.
ma'am.
We'll now move on to item 9A5, approval of memorandum of understanding between McAllen ISD and South Texas College for the Gateway to College program.
Yes, ma'am. This program is going into its 4th year of implementation. We were part of a grant with the Gateway program and South Texas College. We have had students that participated, and we pay this for their attendance there through our state compensatory program. This is in addition to our MACTI program that we currently have with South Texas College at the South Ware Road campus. This is also held at the South Ware Road campus. But we found that we have some students whose schedule and whose deficiency in credits are met through the McTI program. This particular one is trying to find another way to meet students' needs. In this case, our students are there half of the day and then come back to our campus. Some will stay there a little bit longer depending on their schedules and what they still need to make up. But we'd like to continue the partnership with South Texas ISD for this.
Thank you, Ms. Aracate. Any questions? Trustee DeShazo?
Yes, ma'am. When I was looking at this, I noticed that it said that there were 37 students from the 3 traditional high schools. How is that determined? They just...
It's open to any of our 3 comprehensive high schools. The enrollment fluctuates through the year. There are some students that as soon as they recoup some of the credits that they were behind will come back and become full-time at their comprehensive high school. At one part of the year, we'll see them very evenly spaced out.
Okay.
And then about midterm, we'll see a shift. And it has varied every year between one high school to the other. Really just depends on how much we can convince the student to stay in that program to be able to accumulate their credits.
And we're paying $23.87 per student?
Right, per day.
Per day.
Mhm.
And so...
We
what
receive
is
the
grant?
ADA.
What is it? Oh, through the ADA?
We
Or do
receive the
receive
ADA,
it?
yes. We
Because
receive the ADA.
it said the district was not charged attendance.
No. We receive the ADA because they are enrolled with us.
Correct.
It's very similar to McTighe. They're still enrolled in our high schools. It's just that the program is being offered at a satellite campus
So we pay for it through there, through our. it says
through a state compensatory. Mhm.
And then it also talked about an advisory board that does some kind, talks about, you have a liaison that works with, I guess, the school and the college to kind of see that things are working out. Who is on that advisory board?
It's really a combination. It was Dr. Weber prior to his departure, so now I do have to, right now I'm the liaison between the program and them. But it does have a group of staff from STC. They do have a director for the program. And at the time that that gentleman was hired, I was part of the interview committee in selection for that program. So we do collaborate and meet, especially when if I see attendance is sent to us on a regular basis, and I am in that loop. I receive it every day, so I know exactly how many kids are showing up and how many are absent, because by 10 o'clock they have already forwarded the attendance to us. Primarily that if a student is not there, the campus starts looking to say, okay, they didn't get on the bus to get there. And they will come back, and if the student shows up later on, they'll send us a revised attendance to say they're there. So the board is the director from there. We also have another individual, Mr. Juan Carlos Aguirre, who is part of STC, who oversees that program. Like I said, Dr. Weber was part of that meeting, and 2 of the staff members from there, from STC.
And also, it talks about it talked about breakfast and lunch.
Yes.
Now, it's over there?
It's over there. Our food services a department started it when we first started there. We wanted to make sure our students were given the meals that they would typically have received at the campus. They did afford us a couple of rooms that at that time our food service director, Ms. Ocañas, went ahead and set up. The city approved it, and so we have a kitchen, a small kitchen, and a little dining area for them to be able to provide breakfast and lunch for the students.
Now, it also said in the contract that they mentioned that they look at the testing, like on the tox test. Are we still, is that?
Yes, because at that time when we had it, there were students that had the TOS.
Okay.
So we left it in there, but it is whatever current testing they have. And they do work with us when it comes to the testing. We do provide them the testing training and staff to help them administer the test.
And what about the completion rate, Ms. Arcaute? How many of the kids that start finish?
From the number we had last year, we had 37 that were participating, and so because this program allows the student to accumulate their credits and graduate, it's almost very similar to what we would have at options that they could finish in October. So we have had graduates that finish by midterm, some will finish by April, and they've completed their coursework.
But we have a good completion rate.
Yes, it's been very successful for us. You know, like I said, we monitor the attendance very closely, because if they're not there, they're not going to be able to regain
And
their
when you say
credits.
we monitor, is it the school district, they take attendance and then just report it to us?
They take attendance there, and then they report it to us. So we have a time limit as to when they need to send it to us. And so each of the campuses get their copy. I just happen to get all of them, so I'm able to see, okay, what is going on. So it's very easy to see the pattern when a child, because it's accumulative, so you're able to see the whole week. So it's very easy to find out if there's something going on with a child and they're not there.
And I noticed in the contract that there was an area where it talked about evaluating the program. Who does the actual evaluation of this program?
They have been doing one because they had the grant, but at the same time, we were doing it because we were using special revenues.
And they, meaning STC?
STC, because of the requirement of their grant. And in our cases, on our district, because we use special revenues, we do our own self-evaluation.
And that evaluation that STC does, to whom does that go? Is it just for because they got the grant, they have to do an evaluation, or does someone actually look at that evaluation?
It was coming to us. In our case, it was Dr. Weber that was sitting
Okay.
down reviewing the results.
And in the area of the code of conduct, it also stated that if there's any violation of the code of conduct, the student can be terminated?
Yes, which means they would come back to our comprehensive high school. It's the same process that we have with the McTighe. The student, although they're not on our campus, are still, they still have to
Subject to.
abide by all our student code of conduct. in every respect, primarily because they do ride our buses over there, and we transport them back and forth on buses. So it has not been an issue in terms of discipline or that the students, were having to be removed. That really has not become an issue with us.
Thank you, Ms. Arcarte. Thank you, Madam President.
Trustee Esparza?
Ms. Arcarte, how many students do we have there right now? Do you have a number?
This week, the last number I saw last Friday, I believe we had 14. They continue to grow as we're trying to encourage students to get into it. We started doing the interview in the spring, and it's just a matter of making sure that we bring back the students and that we re-engage them. So that number will continue to go through the semester.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Now move to item 9A6, approval of memorandum of understanding among Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, Texas State University, San Marcos, and McAllen ISD.
Yes, ma'am. This particular item, we have been working very closely with the Higher Education Coordinating Board and Texas State University at San Marcos. You recall a couple of years ago, we were fortunate to be able to receive a college advisor under a grant that, at that time, the University of Texas had received through the Higher Education Coordinating Board. And in trying to find out how we had been selected, pretty much what they told us is we had a committee, we had funding, we looked at different criteria, and Rowe High School was the one that was a recipient based on previous year data. And so Rowe High School has been the one that has been fortunate to have a second person that works very closely with our college advisors. We have a college advisor at each of our high schools. This individual is hired through the Higher Education Coordinating Board and Texas State University at San Marcos. As I said, the first year was UT Austin. The last 2 years it has been with San Marcos. And as of Friday, the representative was here in the Valley and met with Ms. McClendon, and they have assured us that they are working on the memorandum of understanding. It was just not ready at this time, so I'm hoping to have it ready for you and for your approval by the 22nd.
Thank you, Ms. Arcata. Any questions or comments? Trustee DeShazo.
Thank you.
That's a question.
Yes, I do have a very important question. We've been doing this for a while, right? Is that what you said? This is
going to be our third
year. Okay. Have we seen an increase in the number of high school students who have shown an interest, continued on due to this particular program?
When I compare the other two high schools, I would say that there is a difference, and that having the second person there is obviously part of the contribution. One of the things that the Higher Education Board is doing with this support for the high school is they're bringing in a recently graduate of the university coming to work at the high school. And the idea was to encourage students to enroll in college, but have someone very close to their age saying, I just did this, but this is what you need to do. So the individual works very closely with the college specialists in helping them with parent meetings, in helping them with students completing their application, writing the essays, rewriting the essays. All three high schools have been very successful, but I want to say that there's always that little edge that Rowe will hold over them because they do have a second person in there. So that college Go Center is rarely ever empty because there's a second body that's always there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeShazo. Any further questions or comments?
Real quick, if I may.
Trustee Vella?
Ms. Arcarte, this person is not necessarily from here, are they?
We've had one from here and one not from here. The very first one we had, the very first young lady we had, which was working with us, she had been a recent graduate of UT Austin, was a former Rowe student, and through that process decided she wanted to go into education. So she came back the following year and had become certified as now a teacher at McAllen High School. I don't know if this individual will be here locally. The second one was not, but the first one was from one of our high schools.
But this is a job they apply for?
It's
through
a
the
job that they
university,
apply for,
and they're
yes.
placed here totally on?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you. We'll now move on to item 9A7. Approval of renewal agreement for request for qualifications number 2012-036, legal services for special education rebid. Ms. Alcarte?
Yes, ma'am. This is a renewal, and this is the final term with the option to renew as a district for the legal services that we have under Beekler and Associates from Austin.
Any questions or comments from the board? Move to item 9A8, approval of revision of previous board agenda approval of expenditures of bid number 2013-065, reading materials, software, and related services catalog bid.
Yes, ma'am. This item was brought for approval back on February of 2014, earlier this fiscal year. And at that time, we had anticipated expenditures of about $500,000. At that time, we were also in the middle of textbook adoptions and resource materials, not quite being able to gauge where that was going to land. We did have a final approval on the resource materials and adoptions in May, and we found that some of the vendors that we had on this bid were some of the vendors we were going to be utilizing as part of those expenditures. That and the expansion of the dual language program and the materials that we purchase also come from here. We did have a larger number of campuses that brought on dual enrollment this year. So in looking forward between now and February, we do anticipate approximately another $810,000 being spent between now and then. We want to make sure that we don't have any break in service from the materials that we would need.
Any questions or comments?
Question. How much of this was previous budget and funds, or is it not previous budget?
With the previous bid, we had set aside $500,000. And so now when we look at the expenditures moving forward, we're approximating about $800,000
Out of this budget?
out of this current year budget.
Thank you.
Trustee Shayla? Oh, I have one question. These are all resource materials, like the consumable books. Is this what we're talking about, or?
Not from this particular one. That was a different company that we had under a different bid. We have several bids that we bring to you on a yearly basis. This one, for example, is specifically for reading material, software, and related services. And we have some others that are just for instructional services, and it may be library books, et cetera. The consumable materials we purchase through the state, through that bid, so that goes in even to a separate bid. But any other resource materials that we want to purchase, yes. Let's say, for example, we had an adoption for science that comes with certain materials, but we want to purchase additional ones, then that would come through this bid.
And all of that fits into our TLCQ
Yes.
program?
We're looking at everything that can be digital, especially because of the integration of technology. So we first and foremost look to see, is this item or is this resource available in a digital format? There are some companies that still do not have that, so we don't have much of a choice in some of those areas where we really want the materials. But companies are moving a little bit more into the digital. Unfortunately, they're also, you want the digital, you have to buy this part in hard copy in order to be able to get the digital. So it's a combination depending on the companies.
Thank you. Any questions? Trustee
Yes,
Shayla?
and Ms. Argate, when you say that this does go right into our digital format, with our TLC, would that reduce the cost of some of these materials, like Ms. Delgado said, books and supplemental materials, but if we are buying the software for the iPads, might that at some point reduce the money that we're spending? I mean, if the kids they can download it on their iPad, they don't have to have.
Right. The only thing that our publishing companies have done is that the digital, it's a license and it's a yearly license. So it's every year. One of the things that we did in purchasing them, for example, for us it will be a one-time expense. The state typically gives us 8 to 10 years for an adoption. So we moved, in the math area, for example, we moved for an 8-year digital. Science was a little bit trickier because science is up for renewal of TEKS in 2 years. So we looked closely at, okay, if we adopt this for now to get us moving in the next 2 years and then waiting for the state to move it, what would it look like? So we're a little bit more cautious in purchasing too much with the science, knowing that it's going to change in 2 years.
But if we're adopting a digital, if we're doing a digital adoption, and we're not buying, thousands of books, because the adoption now is digital, in digital form, is that saving us any money in terms of these types of expenditures?
It does. It does save us. Again, and each company had a little bit different bundle when they were offering it. They were not all the same. For example, in the science, we went digital. And part of their digital packet was you buy the digital for the 8 years, and we provide you a class set per teacher that you have on your system. So, and that's it. So but we saw that as a way to help the student who came to class and didn't have their iPad. The teacher would then have a book to use for that time. But it's not something that's going to be, like in prior years when the adoption was, I need another 2,000 books.
So instead of 150 books per teacher, we have 25 books per teacher.
Exactly.
Correct. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll now move to item 9A9, approval of the interlocal co-op agreement between McAllen ISD and the University of Texas Pan American for the Mother-Daughter Program. Is that about that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm actually very happy that it's at the end because I'm very happy about this one. I'm happy about all of them, but this one I'm really excited about because it has to do with the STEM program. In particular, what the University of Texas Pan American is offering is a mother-daughter program to encourage young ladies at the middle school to pursue and to be able to have an opportunity to look at programs in the STEM fields. Not only was I excited about that, but also very happy to see that the activities are not happening with students being pulled out of class.
That's
The
good.
activities will happen after school, Saturday mornings, and some of those activities in the evenings will include the daughter and the mother coming to the school to receive the workshop, as well as in the ones on Saturday. So it helps not only to build that bond between that mother and the daughter, but also to be educating the parent and the child about the different possibilities of fields in the science area.
These are for middle school, correct?
This is for middle school. We are looking also at one at elementary. This one in particular, there is a cost to it of $200 per mother-daughter team that we'll be utilizing Title I monies to support. We are also in conversation with another program to bring something similar at the elementary level, but that one would be no cost to the district. And as soon as we can have it discussed and approved, then we'll bring it to you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Alacarte, for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Now move to item B, district operations briefings items. Dr. Barrera, number 1, approval of the final payment to Total Protection Systems, Inc. for the fire alarm project at Memorial High School and Dorothea Brown Middle School.
Yes, ma'am, and good evening,
Good evening.
Mrs. De La Garza, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Ponce. This evening, we bring for approval on the 22nd of September, this will, the approval of the fire protection systems. On May 21st, 2012, the Board of Trustees approved the contract with the Total Protection Systems, Inc. of Corpus Christi, Texas, to replace the fire alarms at Memorial High School and Dorothea Brown Middle School. DBR Engineering was contracted to oversee the design and the construction of the work project. Walkthroughs have been conducted for the project at Memorial High School and at Brown Middle School. DBR, Total Protection, the company, and the fire and the district's Facilities Maintenance Operations Department were present at the meeting. DBR has certified that the request for final payment, since all the items on the punch list have been completed by the contractor. The funds for this are budgeted through 199 General Fund, and the total amount of this project, or the final amount in question here, is $14,688.04.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Esparza?
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
These are sprinkler systems, correct? Is that what it is?
The fire sprinkler.
Fire suppression.
like basically a sprinkler system in the school? or what?
Sprinkler.
How do they test that to see if it works? I mean, can't turn it on. Do you have any idea?
Well,
Is that too technical? Beyond your expertise?
it could be, I can ask,
He's in the back of the room there.
oh, did it?
I'm just
He's
curious, I
hiding.
mean, they do? Okay.
Cigarette lighter.
All right.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 10B2, discussion of the Texas Association of School Board TASB Localized Policy Manual Update 100. And this is the first reading. Dr. Barrera?
Yes, ma'am, this is a first reading to maintain an up-to-date policy manual. The TASB, or the Texas Association of School Boards Localized Manual Update 100, is presented as a first reading tonight, and then it'll be for a second reading and approval on September the 22nd. This is an update that consists of legally and locally referenced policies. The attachments that you have in your packets give you the description of the types and the changes that are found in both on the legal side and also on the local side. Another attachment there will show you a log of the items that are up for review or replacement, along with the person or the departments of the policy most impacts. So it's TASB's policy to bring us the changes to the policies, and also to provide us with the changes in the formats or any other portions there that is consistent with past policy items. After staff has reviewed all of the items, and they'll make recommendations and for changes, and then it's presented for a second reading and then for approval. This time around, however, there's a policy, FDA local, that I'll call to your attention. It's about transfers in the renewal process. Under FDA policy, TASB recommends an annual renewal of a transfer request. However, MISD, our local policy, states that the approved transfer automatically renews unless there's a problem or unless it doesn't meet the elements of the policy there. So this is one of the very few times that staff is recommending that we keep the policy as it is, so that students that are here and don't have to renew every single year, they can renew at the highest grade level that is offered at the school at which they attend, and then continue on that way. So that's one of the recommendations there. There are several others there, and they're listed there in your packet for your review.
Thank you, Dr. Barrera. Any questions from the board? Secretary Saldivar?
Oh, thank you. Dr. Barrera, regarding that recommendation by staff on intra-local transfers in, and that while the state suggests that we do an annual review, the administration is recommending we not. Now, would it be maybe fair to approach it this way, is that while that we should do an annual review as recommended, but it's only a review to make sure that the student is still in compliance with local policy. And that way it's fair to all students that they are in compliance with that policy.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are, they stay on their path, their vertical teams, the way it is in elementary to middle school to high school.
Mm-hmm.
But if there are issues that have arisen, I think it's a fair chance for the district to be aware of this. And that way it's fair to all students, and therefore, if there are students that are not compliant, especially when it comes to academics or discipline, then the administration, i.e. the superintendent or his designee, could make some decisions as to whether that student should separate from the district.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, we're in compliance with the state suggesting, but at the same time, it does not change that if the child is doing well and in full compliance, that they continue through,
Mm-hmm.
versus we only get knowledge when there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a suggestion, something to think about, see what your thoughts are.
Yes, sir, and it also serves to help us in keeping up with the records, so that we are, if a change has occurred, we're on that too. So that's actually will help us out a good deal to make that check.
Yeah, because again, my concern is that we have a selective enforcement, that a child, something should occur, one-time event, and somehow it gets passed, some other child comes along, it doesn't get passed, and there's this finger pointing, well, in the past, that child was able to, and this child isn't, and you single it. This way, the records are clear, they're up to date, and we're fully aware, and we continue on. That's just my thought.
If I may.
Trustee Vella?
Thank you. Dr. Barrera, we spoke about this the other day at our meeting. So there's no retransfer application as long as they're within the same school, i.e. the elementary school or middle school or high school. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And to follow up on Mr. Saldivar's point, do we have some type of mechanism in place now to review those transfer students presently? To verify that all criteria associated with their transfer contract has been met by both parties, i.e. attendance, academics, and discipline?
As long as he meets the elements of the criteria there, then it will continue.
But do we have anything in place that we check those now? I think that's what Mr.
And that's what I
Saldivar-
think Mr. Saldivar, yes.
We don't have anything in place right now that we check those?
As a matter of routine on an annual basis.
The principal every year has that list. So unless you tell us otherwise, you
Okay.
continue.
Okay.
All right. So we do have something in
Yeah,
place.
that's why I came to Mike as far as saying, we do a review in the sense of that. I was gonna clarify what the state meant by a review. We don't do a formal come in
Application,
or
yeah.
application or here,
No.
let's do another that. But what we do have is that the principal gets a listing of, and then unless you tell us otherwise, you're going to roll forward. So I was also gonna say it's a negative review, or that if we don't hear from you, we're good. If you do hear from you, then you're gonna possibly, potentially be revoked. But most of the time it is because after the principal's letting us know. Again, it isn't necessarily, it's uniformly set out, but it's not necessarily, there's discretion with each of the principals. So each of the principals really has to determine, using their discretion, whether they allow that attendance or behavior, because it's two, it's attendance or behavior to continue at their campus. So, and it may be at one school, one yes, but at another school not, but the circumstances may be different, or the tolerance level, or some of the other accompanying issues may be surrounding why they let you stay and why someone else didn't get to stay. Because what I didn't want to get into, and the reason we have some of the discretion is, well, he had 2 absences that he did, and he did also, but he stayed and he didn't. And well, there's a bigger element that we're wanting to add to that component when they decide whether or not the student meets the criteria to stay at the campus. So far that's our review.
And you're comfortable with that review?
Well, I do agree that we need to look at perhaps the level of mandatory or persistent, that kind of stuff. Because I think that's where we may be looking at a little bit more consistency with the mandatory type of removals on the campuses and the students that are able to stay or not stay.
Well, my concern is that, you're on one campus, and one-time event on that campus, you're out. On another one, 2 or 3 events, and you're still there. And, I think I don't want it to be mandatory for either one of those, but I think there ought to be some consistency and some direction from administration to the local campuses, and a verification that there is, at the very least, that discretion being followed, but within what is reasonable and necessary to ensure that the students are in a safe, nurturing academic environment, being allowed as a privilege into McAllen ISD. Because those coming from outside in, that's what we're talking about. It's a privilege, not a right, since they don't live within the district, that you pay taxes, you live here, you automatically have a right to be within these campuses. It's those that we allow in from outside. And as you know, we worked very hard on that policy to make sure, as some superintendents tell you, oh good, we're just gonna start sending all our bad apples since you got open enrollment, and that's why we came up with this policy. But at the same time, within it, once there are students, it needs, because once they join our staff, and we allow them to go through vertical teams, then there are students that it's fair and equitable to all students. And that's what my reference is to.
If I may follow up.
Thank you.
2 quick points, if I may. How many students do we have? And roundabout, give me an idea.
The
20,
transfer?
100 transfer-ins?
I can get that for you. I don't have that.
Okay.
I can get that
And
for you.
then, any revocation, if you will, of that contract between the school district and a student transferring in would be made at the end of the school year, is that correct? Not
the-
during the school year?
Not during the school year, at the end of the semesters.
They would
both
complete,
the
at the
fall
end of
and
the
spring.
semesters, okay. So
Mhm.
they would complete that semester and then, okay, thank you.
Trustee Aliceta?
Are y'all finished on that training? I have a different
Yes,
policy I
ma'am.
want to talk about.
Thank you.
On page 225, FEA Legal P, on higher education visits, I wonder if this board would like to revisit that, so that a student is only excused if they're visiting a college their junior and senior year. We're doing all this college readiness and talking about all the endorsements. I'd like to see my freshman daughter be able to miss a day of school to go visit a university, or my sophomore daughter. I'm just wondering if the board would like to look at that policy and maybe amend it so that we are excused absences for freshmen and sophomores too, instead of just juniors and seniors, since that's the whole, what our push is maybe it's time to amend our higher education visits.
Wait,
We
it
can
does allow
certainly-
for it, doesn't it?
Excuse me?
It does allow for it, doesn't it?
Only if you're a junior and senior, but what about your freshman and sophomore? I mean, or your eighth grader for that matter.
That's a valid point now that we're looking at these endorsements in
Mhm.
8 through 12. Makes some sense.
We can sure revisit that and bring it up before our sub-policy and kind of put it through the works there and bring you back something.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the board? Some great discussion. We now move to item 10B3, approval of renewal for RFQ number 2012-021, on-call architectural engineering and materials testing. Dr. Barrera?
Yes, ma'am. Our district has several multi-year contracts for goods and services. Multi-year contracts are presented to the board when the departments recommend their renewal. These agreements are utilized to purchase architectural, engineering, and materials testing services. On August the 20th, 2012, the Board of Trustees approved a request for qualifications, and that's number 2012-021 for on-call architectural, engineering, and materials testing for a period of 1 year with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms. At this time, staff is recommending the renewal of these agreements for the final year of the district's option to renew. A little bit of history: expenditures for the 2012-2013 school year were in the range of $240,913, while in 2013 and 2014, we spent in the neighborhood of $360,396. The expenditures for these services for the next term will be based on projects assigned to each firm. And this is for approval on the 22nd.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a question. The purpose of going to this on-call services is obviously not to save money, but to save time?
Time. Often, this only applies for emergency items or items that we get into that we may not have been budgeted for.
Okay.
Things that happen abruptly, we need the services there, we get in on this quickly.
Okay.
Any further questions? Now move to item 10B4, approval of renewal of bid number 2013-023, groceries, produce, and department store miscellaneous items.
This is also routine and also a renewal. We have the several multi-contracts for goods and services. This one is bid number 2013-023 for groceries, produce, department store, and miscellaneous items. This was awarded on October the 28th, 2013, through a period of 1 year with the option to renew for 2-year term. Staff is recommending the renewal of the contracts for the first year of the district's option to renew. And a little bit of history: this goes with food and nutrition services, but also the general fund, campus activity funds, and student activities funds will also use these vendors. Expenditures for 2012-2013 were $407,653. 2013-2014 were $269,710. This year or future, we're anticipating expenditures in the term of in the neighborhood of $400,000, and these are estimates given to the due to the past products that were purchased on an as-needed basis. And this will be for approval on September the 22nd.
Thank you. Do you have any questions or comments from the board? Now move to item 10B5, approval of design for professional contract number 2014-036, James Nicky Rowe High School roofing project. Dr. Barrera?
This is for the design of the replacement of the James Nicky Rowe roof. On February the 10th, 2014, the Board of Trustees approved a pre-qualified pool of design service providers through the request for qualifications on number 2013-092 for professional design services pool. And then on April the 28th, the Board of Trustees approved a second request for qualifications. This was a request for qualifications number 2013-098 for professional design services. Okay, from that pool, staff has ranked 3 providers from a pre-qualified pool in order of perceived qualifications to determine a ranking the most highly qualified to undertake the design services for the Rowe roof project. Staff negotiated an agreement with the highest ranked firm of ERO International for design services for the James Nicky Rowe High School roof project. And staff is recommending approval of the agreement. And this is for approval on the 22nd. The agreement has been reviewed by our school attorney, and this is with budgeted funds. This is from the some of the Hale proceeds.
You mean the settlement of the claim from our insurance carrier, the proceeds we received from the insurance carrier?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I have one question. You said 3 vendors,
Mhm.
and I only see one. Who are the other?
One of the top 3.
Oh, you see one of the top 3. So this is just the top?
This is the winner.
This is the
This is
top.
the winner. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Or the highest ranked.
The highest ranked. Got you. Okay. Any further questions or comments from the board?
Quick question. This
Trustees
pool
Bond.
of, or this provider here is from that same pool of providers that was on item number 3? Or is it just?
No.
No.
Nope.
This is a pool that was assembled for these
This
types of
particular
jobs, for
project.
bigger
Okay.
jobs. And then we added to the pool again a second time, and we got our contractors or our vendors, and then this is from that separate pool.
But this one's made on a bid. It's a
Yes.
bid that was submitted, and it
Yeah.
was the lowest bid, and it was one that the committee recommends.
It was the bid that was recommended by the committee.
That's
Yes, sir.
And
I'm sorry.
it was the lowest bid,
No, it's the highest ranked.
It's the highest
Highest
ranked.
The highest ranked.
and not the lowest bid?
Well, now, I misspoke, and I'm sorry, Mr. Esparza, because it's just two-stage process, you're right. This was just the review and the committee, it was the highest score, so they recommends it. And then now, if we approve that, then it goes out for negotiations on the contract.
Negotiations on the contract, and they'll
Exactly.
give us some options once they design it, and some options to look at and to consider, and then we go.
And that comes back to the board for review and approval at
The
that
dollar
time. So it's a
amount.
two-stage, and I misspoke, I'm sorry.
And the reason I'm asking, because the contract that's attached there has a fee amount in there, so you're saying you can negotiate that fee amount?
As it reads, to negotiate an agreement with the highest ranked firm.
So, and again, that contract that's attached to that item, I think it's page 11 or so of that contract, it has a stated amount that they'll do it for. So you're indicating that we can still go and negotiate that amount?
Yes, as it reads, we have that option. And I can get,
You're saying no?
is that right, Kevin?
You almost got away with it, Ken. Sorry.
3 seconds from it. What's the amount?
The pool of architects and engineers, maybe 20 or 30 firms, several months ago was approved by the board. This intent was to rank from that pool to do those projects that are funded through our budget process. At this point, the way the item was written or intended to be written was approval of the ranking and approval of the contract.
So right now, it's just approval of the ranking being accepted.
And the contract.
And
This
then
would be
forward, then you guys now work on the contract and bring that back to us.
No, we're.
This is the
approving
contract right here.
There's a contract.
See, that's the
Yeah, I
confusion, because
misspoke.
normally it's two-stage. You review the ranking, approve that, and then instruct administration to begin the negotiations on the terms. So in this case, it's not.
The intent is to bring the ranking and the contract once to the board.
That's why we approved the pool.
And I forgot it was from the pool.
And so,
Mhm.
on page 327 of that contract where it says compensation, it's 222,000, that's the agreed amount that they will do this project for. Is that my understanding?
That's a 6% fee based upon our estimate for construction. That'd vary if construction goes up or down. Is this the row roof project
Yes.
specifically?
Yes.
The intent there is to come back to the board with some options on what that roofing material may be, which then would give us a better handle on what the actual budget will be at that time.
So that number there is not edged and steel.
No.
And can we approve it like that then?
It's very typical for construction contracts to be percent of construction. If they want to do a flat fee, that's pretty hard for an architect to give you a number on because the scope of work's so flexible.
And this item's not up for tonight, but.
Okay.
yeah.
I just want to clarify.
Sure.
And that's stated in the contract that that number could change based on the scope of the work.
Yes, and this is all pending Mr. Crane's review of the contract, but
Okay.
definitely.
No further
Questions or
questions.
comments?
Well, I was just gonna add that they will help us design a roof based on best applications for that particular building. So we haven't really decided on what kind of roof it's gonna be. They're gonna come to us with, am I correct?
Mhm.
Correct, because I know this roof has some options. I want to make sure that we're all on board before they proceed to design something. So we'll come back fairly early, maybe month 2, with kind of some options on the roof.
Madam President, follow?
Yes, trustee Saldivar.
During the settlement negotiations with our carrier, Discovery found that, as you know, that there was ways of repairing these roofs that is different from what the industry was leading school districts to believe had to be done to these roofs. Is that correct?
That's certainly correct. Yeah,
And
there
so
are a
now
lot
we
of
have that
options.
information, from what you're saying, is you're gonna take that knowledge and apply to what currently needs to be done. And it may be totally different from what has been previously put on these buildings and what's on that campus right now.
Yes, sir.
At a much more enhanced and less cost than previously.
We'll
potentially.
we'll bring those options, definitely.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments?
So,
Trustee
if I can just be
Alexander?
clear, this is just for the schematic design, this isn't for the actual construction. This is just for an engineer drawing it out, this is that contract.
Correct. Because the process is so drawn out, we'll do design this budget year and we'll do construction next year.
So the number that I see for schematic design phase, that's strictly for drawing it out, that's no construction included in there?
That's a portion of the design, that's correct.
For the design.
Page 327 in the packet.
327?
It's the 222.
327 in the packet.
On the packet?
It says 327?
Page 327 of our packet.
Oh, yeah, it says 222,000, correct?
Right,
That's their percentage of,
what they
6%.
estimate.
Yeah,
the-
you
It's a
should
of
be
just
looking
the
at,
design,
Right.
not the construction.
Right. That's why I was a little confused. Somebody said, no, this is the contract. No, this isn't. This is the contract for design phase only,
Design
not to
piece.
the actual construction.
Right.
It costs more than 200,000.
Yeah, no, I knew it was for the design phase, I just.
That seems frightfully expensive to me.
It's real expensive.
It's a big roof.
That still seems frightfully expensive to me.
But, excuse me, ma'am.
Trustee Esparza?
All three of the companies that submitted bids, that's a standard, that 6% is what they all charge, right? I mean, there's no negotiating around, they're all gonna charge you 6% based on a certain amount of the construction cost.
you don't bid the professional services, but that is a low percentage when compared to other architectural fees. They typically range 8, 9, 10, even 12%.
Based on the
Of
construction
construction
cost.
cost.
The
That's
higher,
correct.
on that same page, higher construction costs, lower percentage, lower construction cost, higher percentage. So they all do the same thing, I mean, correct?
That's page 16 of the contract? is it?
Yes.
And on the bottom down there, it talks about,
327, page 327 on
That is listing the phases of construction: schematic design, design development, construction documents, and bidding and negotiation, and then the construction management phase. The total fee, 6%, would be $222,000. When they have completed the schematic design phase, you would pay them 30% of their fee, or $66,000.
Yeah, but to answer Mrs. Aliceda's question, on the design phase, since this is going to be done over a 2-year period, we're only really talking at this time the $66,600.
No.
Or you're talking the $222 total.
The design is all 5 of these phases.
But, you through, son?
Yes, sir.
But isn't that correct to say that on these contracts, that percentage varies depending on the cost of the project? The higher the construction cost, you get a better percentage rate. The lower the construction cost, the percentage rate goes up. So
In general, yes. Also, if it's like a food service project, then you typically had food service consultants. If it's a project that requires some civil work for some site drainage, then they'd want the fee to be higher to cover those civil consultants that they have to hire. Where this is a roofing project, it's strictly the architect and a roofing consultant.
Trustee Salazar?
Without, because I know there's a process here, and it's got to be fair about it. Without knowing the names of the other 2, although they're on the list, frankly, we could probably look them up. Could you share with us, not today necessarily, but in anticipation of our next meeting, what those other fees were for those other firms? And then tell us the industry, reasonable and customary, what they would be based on this project. I know you mentioned, because Mr. Esparza is correct, the higher amount you get a lower percentage because it's a greater dollar amount of the whole project. This being probably at a lower level versus, like a $14 million campus versus a roof, which is less. That's why the percentage is 6 versus 12 or 13, which it might be in some other facility.
Let me bring a report that will explain this process. I think that'll clear up the question.
And if you could,
Okay.
maybe in anticipation of our next meeting, get it to us
Certainly.
soon enough so we can review it.
Mhm.
Thank you. Be most appreciated.
Any further questions or comments from the board? Thank you. Then we'll now move to item 10B6, approval of design professional contract number 2014-037 for Alonso de Leon Middle School roofing project. And this is in page 381.
questions.
All the questions.
381 of your package.
What he said.
Yeah, change the name of this.
And it's the same vendor for,
I'll get a 2 for 1.
what was the total on
It's
this?
more work.
Steve, can we
What
put
if you
that in
throw in a
contract?
third?
2 for 1?
Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam President, just to clarify, again, this is coming from the settlement from the hail loss claim we made with our insurance carrier, the proceeds.
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Correct. Okay.
And I'll put together some figures same way as we did in the previous item, as far as the fee schedules.
Thank you, Dr. Barrera, for your presentations tonight. We'll now move to item 10C, business operations briefing items. Item number 1, approval of the McAllen Independent School District August budget amendment for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2014 and ending June 30th, 2015. Ms. Lopez.
Yes, ma'am. The first item is under the programmatic or policy changes. Under revenues, we have just over $5,600 for incentive from AEP in terms of revenue increase. Expenditures, the higher dollars, they're listed. Function 11, we're going to use some fund balance out of Fund 163, Gifted and Talented for science supplies. Function 21, also out of fund balance from the Bilingual Fund 164 for Imagine Learning annual license renewal. Function 51, we're trying to increase supplies and materials for FMO from that AEP incentive that's listed above. And also the rest of the Function 51 and all of Function 81 has to do with carry forward balances from 13-14. They're all related to FMO projects, one-time projects, and also listed there is McHigh boys locker room renovation and Memorial girls locker room renovation. You have the totals there listed.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Any questions or comments from the board? There being none, we'll move to item 10C2, approval of self-funded health and dental plan funding rates and benefits for 2014-15. Ms. Lopez?
Yes, ma'am, and we are asking for approval this evening for this item. Just to review with the board, we do annually evaluate the benefit design and employer-employee contributions to make recommendations regarding the continuation of our self-funded health and dental plan for the October 1st contract period and the January 1st benefit period. The current employer medical contribution is $329 a month and dental contribution of $18 per month, and they are budgeted. We do have premiums listed, both employer contribution and employee contribution on attachment A. That does work out to just over $4,000 per year that the district funds for each staff member. The district has annually elected to exercise its option to exempt the benefit plan from certain Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act HIPAA requirements. Administration recommends the renewal of the HIPAA opt-out exemption for 14-15 plan year, and that is in attachment A. The letter is drafted there. What's new this year within our self-funded plan is we are administratively recommending an amendment to the benefit plan to include a provision to allow for annual consideration of cash-based wellness incentives, and that is attachment C. In the initial year, a $100 per enrolled employee would be made available from the excess reserves of the benefit plan. Excess reserves would be anything over 3 months' worth of expenditures, which currently is about $2 million a month. The amount of award per employee will be based on the number of employees that complete the wellness activity, but in no event will it be less than $100 in the initial year. Employees must be enrolled in the benefit plan, complete a preventative blood screening or health risk assessment that we can handle through our Blue Cross Blue Shield administration website, and provide proof to be eligible. Of course, the amendment has been reviewed by legal counsel. Based on the August enrollment, we're talking about setting aside $312,600 from the benefit plan fund reserves to allocate for this incentive. All of these monies are in a separate fund. They are in the self-funded fund, so the money is already sitting there. We haven't completed this year's audit, but we are estimating that the fund will have a fund balance of just over $9 million. The other things to note, and of course you have the attachments, this is our 4th year that we are recommending no type of premium increase, both on the employer contribution and the employee contribution.
Any questions or comments from the board?
You want approval on this tonight, right, Ms. Lopez?
Yes, sir, and I forgot to mention, one of the reasons that we would like approval this evening is Adalia is already working on, actually the schedule is already out for the wellness screenings, and so they are starting October 1, so we want to communicate to staff with enough time so that they know that they will be placed in the pool to share in this amount of money based on the number of participants. We really would like the wellness screenings to reach, well, we'd love it to reach 100% of our population, but in past years, in terms of the trend, it's been closer to 50%. So we're hoping this incentive, because obviously if we continue with the 50%, that $100 gets closer to $200 per staff member. So we'll see how that works. And we want folks to be healthy and happy, so.
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve.
Second.
I now have a motion by trustee Vella and a second by trustee Salazar. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, Madam President, if I may.
Yes, sir.
As Ms. Lopez pointed out, and this was something we discussed at length during our committee meeting, and we need to kind of maybe reemphasize to our staff, this is a self-insured plan administered by Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and we've been able to manage, frankly, because we've done well with a lot of healthy individuals, and those of us that have taken up the wellness program, which is about half of the staff, has actually carried the rest. So if everybody wants to, help keep their insurance rates down, here's a proactive way to do it, and we encourage everyone 100% to take advantage of these opportunities, sometimes at no cost or very nominal cost. Correct?
Yes, sir. The wellness is actually free to all staff members.
There you go. So there's no reason, and in many cases, it may help identify a medical need that needs to be addressed early on, where it could be either prevented from or alleviated entirely, and therefore keep our costs down. So
Exactly.
we want to continue to not increase rates like we have been. We really need everyone to participate. Is that?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you.
And we will only do this as long as we reserve at least 3 months' worth of reserves, which we are in good shape for.
Thank you.
Does this also include, I'm sorry, the wellness luncheons that they've been doing with staff for high blood pressure, hypertension?
The lunch and learn is a part of that, ma'am. In terms of the working with DHR, what we are still working on is getting these lunch and learns out to the campus because of the different lunch schedules and so forth, or possibly even after work for those that want to stay. But really, the screenings right now that they would do is either the blood work or the health assessment.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, those are great resources for the staff, and I know
They are.
when I was here, there was at least
It was a room full, yeah.
50 people in here, and there was some really great conversations with the medical provider that was here doing those presentations. So I applaud Ms. Adalia del Bosque and the benefits department as well for putting those together, and look forward to more of those as well.
Yes, ma'am.
So, thank you.
Real quick comment. Can't we do some type of competition by campus, kind of like they do with United Way, and maybe offer some additional incentive just to get everybody to
We
participate?
could, we could, and we'll actually, we're going to keep reviewing these. There are some other items that we have discussed, but they're more on the negative side, and so we want to keep it all on the positive
Right.
side. Because we know that private employers actually put things into their plan that say, if you do this, your premium is higher, and if you do this. And so we haven't taken that approach, but we can certainly do these, or more competition-based and participation even based.
Madam President, the other thing that was discussed is the possibility of medical creating little vignettes, little video clips, 1 or 2 minutes, to then mass email to the employees that can either visually see how plans work, how to get in touch with someone, or information. So I thought that was a very good suggestion on leveraging technology.
I know our employer does that for our health and for our driving, how to back up and parallel park.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's busy, so they may not be able to read a long document, but they can get these little health tips and see and learn, so it's a great idea.
Great. Thank you. So we do have a motion on the floor by Trustee Vella and a second by Trustee Saldivar. Now move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Item passes 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Lopez. We'll now move to item 10C3, approval of renewal of request for qualifications number 2012-052, collection of delinquent taxes. Ms. Lopez?
Yes, ma'am. On September 24th, 2012, the Board of Trustees approved the contract for the collection of taxes with Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott, LLP, in association with the Law Office of John David Franz, Inc., McAllen, Texas, effective November 1st, 2012, for a primary term of 1 year with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms. Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott, LLP, is no longer in association with the Law Office of John David Franz, Inc. Staff is recommending, we are recommending that the Board of Trustees amend the agreement to indicate Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott, LLP, as the firm which will provide delinquent tax collection services to the district under the existing agreement for a term extended and renewed through October 31st, 2015, the last year of the 3-year term possibility. The amendment was provided to the board, and it has been reviewed by our school attorney. The way this works, as the board will recall, MISD pays the firm as compensation, and actually as compensation for delinquent tax collection services under this agreement, 15%, which shall include the additional penalty, references the tax code there. The key is the 15% is collected from the delinquent taxpayer. It doesn't come from our penalty and interest share. We are asking for approval on September 22nd. It would be a 2-part motion that the Board of Trustees approve the amendment to the agreement for collection of delinquent taxes with Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott, and then that the board would renew the agreement for collection of delinquent taxes for the final year of the district's option to renew.
And I believe there was also a change in the attachment 9C3, which was emailed to all of the board members. Okay,
Yes, ma'am. There was.
thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I have one, Madam Chair.
Trustee
Miss-
Vella?
Ms. Lopez, you and I went over some numbers, and you were gonna get some further information on that. You will get us something,
Yes, sir. We did ask staff to keep reviewing some of the additional information. The board had been provided some information, and so we were cross-checking everything. I will try and get something out this week to the board in terms of information that the board also received.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Trustee Saldivar?
During our committee discussion, we could not come to an agreement, so we're not able to at this time give you some insight or direction from the committee that met with Ms. Lopez on Thursday. But it's centered on two things, and one of which may be resolved by the first item listed on the recommendation, which was the fact that there was still, in the original agreement, the association with John David Franz as a component. And the second was that we have recently received correspondence that outlined a lot of different areas within the delinquent tax experience. And so I, for one, felt that to clarify all of these matters, it would probably behoove us to verify the information and to properly verify in the terms of fairness to the district and to the parties is to, and again, this is something to think about over the next several days and weeks before we have to take action, that it would be best to address these issues that this document reference through a process of the renewal. In other words, open it up for requests for qualifications and it become a part of our assessment. And if we find that they're unverifiable or not substantiated, then we renew the contract if that's what we so choose. If not, we're already in a position to approach it. That was my suggestion. We didn't all agree, so it's not a recommendation from the committee, and it's a subject for further conversations at some level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Saldivar. Any further questions or comments? Trustee Vella?
I think Mr. Saliba will agree that the information pending would be a great place to start. So,
Yes, and yes.
Yes, I would.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to item 10C4, approval of request for proposal number 2014-032, stop loss insurance. Ms. Lopez?
Yes, ma'am. Related to the district self-funded plan, we are protected from catastrophic claims through individual and group aggregate medical excess risk insurance, stop loss insurance, purchased from a commercial carrier. Blue Cross and Blue Shield has been the provider of the stop loss insurance since October 1st, 2011. Proposals were received from Blue Cross Blue Shield on a direct basis and from 5 other insurance groups through 2 insurance brokers. All proposals included a duplication of the current $200,000 individual stop loss deductible with a 12-month policy and 3-month runoff period, the 12-15 policy. All groups also presented individual stop loss options at $225,000, $250,000, and $275,000. Willis of Texas Benefits Consultants reviewed the proposals and has provided a recommendation based on price versus risk, service, and solvency. The Willis of Texas recommendation is to continue with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas and to increase from $200,000 to $250,000 the individual stop loss deductible level. That's on attachment A. The estimated premium of $983,700 is a reduction of $1,505 over the current policy, but keep in mind the stop loss is going higher. Supporting information provided from Willis is also provided in attachments B and C. We have the budgeted amounts there listed, the last one being still on an 11-month basis because we do pay this monthly. And we are recommending that the board on the 22nd would approve the proposal for the stop loss insurance to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Any questions or comments from the board? There being none, Ms. Lopez, thank you for your presentation
Thank you.
tonight. And we'll now move to item 9D, Superintendent's briefing items.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to share a few things. I have a couple of videos that I would like to share with us tonight. First of all, this is just an introduction, and we'll cut to the video. Our district received excellent news last week, which speaks to the kind of staff and students we have in McAllen ISD. On Friday, a news release originated in Washington, D.C. and went out across the country. The incredible fact was that it was specifically about McAllen ISD. It came from the Let's Move Active Schools, a sub-initiative of First Lady Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. This news release recognized McAllen ISD, which our Let's Move campaign under the direction of Mario Reina and Dr. Guess, for becoming the first school district in the country to reach 100% national recognition. This means that each eligible learning site earned a Let's Move Active Schools National Recognition Award. All 32 of our eligible campuses got this award. Because of this distinction, on Friday, a national figure, Anthony Robles, visited 7 of our schools. He made an emotional connection with students and staff as we focused on our united national message behind Let's Move Active Schools. Our message is be active, eat healthy, and be well. Here's a brief look at this visit. As you see, he had several schools. I happened to catch up with him at lunch, and he was ecstatic about all his visits. He was overwhelmed by the reception, and he said he's done a lot of this throughout the country, and he's not had this kind of reception, so he's looking forward to coming back. Then on Saturday morning, Mr. Robles was the featured speaker at our Let's Move Pep Rally, where our collection of city and school district team kicked off our student marathon. At this extremely successful and powerful event, about 5,000 students, parents, and community members took to the track to log their first mile of our community's first ever 26.2 mile kids marathon. It was an amazing sight to see. Here's a look at what happened. I just want to welcome everyone. I'm glad that everyone made time to come out tonight, a big event, and thank you, Mario. And
so thank you. Thank y'all so much.
I hear you up there. A special thank you to Superintendent Ponce and Mayor Darling for hosting this great event. Your collective work.
This is an unbelievable turnout. I don't think we've ever had as many people on our track. Unbelievable. Slow down, boys and girls. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down. I don't want nobody falling. Keep up the good work. Slow down. We have a lot of runners and walkers.
was, yes. The excitement is there. The kids have a good grasp of knowing what they need to accomplish. Hopefully, as we kind of kick this in, they'll join up with their parents to meet that mileage requirement. Actually, the marathon culminates at the McAllen Tamale Kids Run during the Tamale Fest on Saturday, December 13th. The deeper issue in all this is the way we're working to get this generation of children to exercise and eat right so that they can grow up healthy and avoid the issues of obesity and diabetes. I'd like to thank everyone who is helping in these efforts. Our PE staff is there, but we also have food services and nursing and all of their employees. I'd also like to thank the Monitor for its commitment to this mission to transform our children's health and, as a result, our community's future. The one piece that, a lot of times we keep talking about the TLC-Q, and when we talked about TLC-Q earlier, yes, it's a little bit about the device, but it's bigger about really transforming when you think about this event and how it connects to the community and the changes that are going to happen not only in this community but across the valley and the nation. But then it does tie back to the classroom and the campus when we want kids at school, because they're healthy, feeling better about not just the physical health. Sometimes we miss about on the mental health also, and the esteem that comes when you start doing some things, when you start running, when you start losing weight, when you start being active. What we're setting up, we're trying to set up similar to the challenge that's going around. I'll be in as part of this initiative and everyone's work. I'll be in DC on Monday, but we're going to set out the challenge to the rest of the nation to see if they can also get 100%. So as that moves along, we'll know that it all emanated from everyone's work, and we're looking forward to challenging the rest of the United States. And that's what McAllen does.
Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
I'd also like to recognize Mr. Romeo Cantu, who is part of McAllen Parks and Rec, Boys and Girls Club, Board of Directors, who was a big part of our pep rally for both the marathon kickoff and the Let's Move pep rally. So registration is open for both the Tamale Fun Run and the Kids Marathon, and so people can sign on online and register their children. And if financing for some parents is an issue, then they can also talk to a board member from that committee as well. So thank you.
They're healthy tamales on that.
Healthy, you're right. Fat-free.
Healthy tamales, right?
Saturday, work it off on Sunday.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. So, any further questions or comments from Dr. Ponce? We'll move to item 9E, Board of Trustees briefing items, approval of Board of Education minutes for both A and B regular board meeting and the special board meeting on August 25th, 2014 at 5 and 6:15 respectively. This is for action tonight.
So moved.
I have a motion by
Second.
Trustee Aliseda and a second by Trustee DeShazo. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Item passes 7-0. Move to item 10, schedule of future meetings as listed on A through D. And with there no reason to go into closed session, this meeting, the 5 p.m. meeting is now adjourned at 8:22 p.m. Board members, if I could keep you here for another 20 minutes, we do have to